Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Nuala Black and of course this is Foxy at 50. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today I want to let you know what are my top 10 foods that will cause premature aging. You might not like what you hear, but I'm just putting it out there. Some of them are really obvious, some of them not obvious at all. And if it's showing up in your face, then you might want to consider what it might also be doing to your internal organs. And sometimes we think that when we look in the mirror and maybe aren't too pleased about what we see, we just put it down to aging or bad genes or just unlucky, whatever, the climate. But a lot of the time we can do something about it because it's purely what we're putting into our bodies, or it's certainly helping the premature aging. So I've listed the top 10 things. I've done a lot of research on it, so I'm no expert, but this is just the things that I have learned about over the years that definitely cause premature aging. Of course we're aging and that will show up in our faces, but there's no point in helping it along with ingesting really bad food and drink. So here we go with my top 10. So number one is sugar. So I've actually made a standalone video on the harmful effects of sugar. So please do check that out as it goes into a lot more detail about the really harmful effects of sugar. But just to recap, be under no illusion that sugar is toxic. It's extremely toxic, and it's causing premature aging because it's attacking the collagen and the elastin in our skin. We're losing collagen every single day. Just being alive, we're losing collagen. But if you eat a lot of harmful foods that attack collagen, and sugar is probably one of the biggest, then you're going to not only age, but you're going to age prematurely. So we certainly don't need that. It's particularly difficult for me because I've got a really sweet tooth, but I have managed to cut down a lot because I do a lot of fasting, so I'm not really eating anything then. So, and of course I've learned about the different sweeteners. I'm going to talk about sweeteners later on in the video. But yeah, sugar doesn't just age our skin. Of course, we know it's responsible for so many diseases, diabetes and so on. And of course the weight gain. So if maybe obviously I'm sure you knew all about that, but maybe you weren't aware of the effects that it has on the skin, so that's a little bit more of an incentive to try and come off it or cut down. So then number two is alcohol. Yes, unfortunately alcohol is extremely aging. If you think about it, of course, when we have a hangover, that is simply the effects of having been poisoned, and just because this particular poison doesn't kill us, again, we think that it's fine, but be under no illusion that it is killing us over a long period of time. And if it's doing that, again, you just have to imagine the effect that it's having on your skin. A lot of people don't associate alcohol with aging. We know all about the very bad effects it can have on the liver and so on, but it really, again, destroys the collagen and the elasticity in the skin. But one of the biggest things that alcohol does is dehydrate the skin. So that means it's just taking out all the moisture. As we get older, again, that's happening anyway. Our skin gets drier. So if we drink too much, then what can also happen is that the face gets very puffy, the eyes get darker. It really does have an effect, but we know after a day or two, face is back to normal and that's fine. But as we get older, or as we keep drinking or drinking too much, those effects tend to stay and then they actually become permanent. And no amount of moisturizer or fancy skin creams or potions will make that right. There will get to a point where it won't correct itself. Your skin won't go back to normal. We get away with it in our 20s, but we're still doing the damage in our 20s. You just don't notice it, but you will certainly start noticing it if you've turned 50. And again, don't think that it's just all about a natural aging process. It could very well be because of another thing that you're putting in your body, and alcohol again is one of the biggest culprits. Then number 3 is the amount of food that we eat. The portion sizes, that can have a really bad effect on our bodies. It requires a lot of energy to metabolize food, and this digestion process therefore creates real stress on the body. So you can imagine what a lot of stress is doing to your face. The more you eat, the more your body stresses, and overeating can really lead again to lots of diseases like cardiovascular, diabetes type 2. And it's not just about, don't just think this refers to obese people. Even just taking in a little bit extra or a little bit too much food, a little bit over the recommended calorie allowance, can really affect your skin. So eating less isn't just about losing weight. It's really going to help your skin and, as I say, combating lots of diseases or preventing lots of diseases by really making sure that you're eating the correct portion sizes. So as long as it's nutritionally balanced, eating less is good for your bodies and definitely good for your skin. So we're up to number 4, and number 4 is red meat. Now, eating red meat really increases the body's aging process and causes all sorts of health problems. I mean, scientists have found out that just a moderate increase in red meat can make a person age significantly. And in particular, you know, the commercial and the factory produced meat, it's usually laden with hormones and antibiotics. And then the farmers feed them with all sorts of genetically modified foods. They're given pesticides, fertilizers, and that all stays in the animal's body, and then it's passed on to you. And the most toxic of all these animals is the poor old pig. The pig is so toxic, if you realised, you would never ever eat it. I mean, a pig has no sweat glands, so how we all get rid of a lot of the toxins is through sweat. Pig doesn't have any, so all those toxins, I mean, it naturally is full of viruses anyway, without even what the farmers give them. And then, so they're just naturally like that. And then without any sweat glands, all those toxins and poisons stay with them. And it all gets stored in the fatty tissue, and that's the meat, and that's what you eat. And a pig eats everything. It digests everything. So just think about that for a moment. And, you know, you might want to think again when you think you can't resist that bacon sandwich, because everything from the pig is highly toxic. So eating anything with that amount of toxins in it will play havoc with your skin, and I can't think of anything that will age you quicker than eating pig meat. And all red meat is aging and has significant detrimental effects on your health, and it's directly linked to lots of different types of cancer, but particularly colon cancer, cancer of the rectum, bowel cancer, those kind of cancers. I think they're actually only come from eating red meat. So so there's a lot of reasons to give up your red meat, but the incentive here is to halt the aging process or to stop premature aging, and this is another accelerant towards aging. So number 5 are artificial ingredients, food additives, artificial sweeteners like aspartame, saccharin, preservatives like BHA, monosodium glutamate, potassium bromate. You'll see these on labels on foods. And we might think that they're all perfectly okay. The government allows them, so they can't be harmful, they can't be toxic. They're extremely harmful, they're extremely toxic, and they're extremely aging. Many of them have been linked to premature aging and all sorts of serious diseases. You really need to try to start eating, if you haven't already, whole foods, natural foods. Anything that's artificial is causing disease, is causing poison in our body, is poisoning on our body rather, and that means anything with poison is aging us. So again, if that's an incentive to help you to cut down. As far as the sweetness concerned, I mean, I've already said I have an incredibly sweet tooth, and I was so happy when I discovered stevia, because stevia is a natural plant sweetener. It's been tested over and over. There are no side effects, there are no adverse effects. It's obviously not toxic, it's a natural plant, and it's really, really strong actually. You only need a tiny bit, and I've seen Raymond Blanc, the famous chef, cooking with it, so if it's good enough for him. And so read the labels. I've only just mentioned a few of them, but try to avoid them at all costs. They are so toxic, they are so dangerous. And to be honest, making us look older is probably the least of our worries when it comes to these additives. So number 6, we have caffeine, of course. Sorry about that. I love my coffee too. But caffeine has a similar effect on the skin as alcohol because it acts like a diuretic. And so that can, of course, leave skin dehydrated and very dry. And once it's very dry, it's prone to wrinkles. I mean, strangely enough, however, there's a lot of evidence now that caffeine is actually good for the skin, but when it's applied topically, but not very good for the skin when it's ingested. I went on decaf years and years ago, and you know, I still do have a coffee, a caffeinated coffee when I'm out and about, but 90% of the time, and certainly all the time at home, I only drink decaf. Don't notice the difference now. Try a few brands and then you'll finally find one. It took me a few brands that, you know, you just can't tell the difference. So number 7, we have salty foods, salty foods. Excess sodium intake causes cell decay, and again that means premature aging. Lowering salt intake really can slow down the aging process of cells. Excess sodium in your body will again make you dehydrated. It will cause water retention. It can make your skin very irritable, dry, patchy, and the water retention can make it look puffy. So you can see that that's extremely aging. So number 8, trans fats. These really are nasty. They're mostly manufactured, but small amounts are still found in meat and dairy. High levels of cholesterol and triglycerides can wreak havoc on our appearance, and trans fats raise cholesterol. That's what they're famous for, that's what they're known for. So what are trans fats? Typically they are fried foods, biscuits, cakes, margarine. There's no excuse for margarine. Butter, not margarine. Sweets, often found in frozen pizza, shortening, donuts. Trans fats are really cheap, so they're found most often in really cheap food. So try get used to knowing about your trans fats and avoid them like the plague. So number 9, we've got processed foods. Of course, processed foods would have to be included. Now, processed foods, what are they? Well, refined grains, processed meat and pasteurized dairy. It mainly covers it. Refined grains, they have no nutritional value whatsoever, and they are such common foods. All the nutrition is completely stripped right out of them in the manufacturing process. The effect of what is left is very similar to the effect that sugar has on your body. And also, processed grain products typically have all sorts of added ingredients as well, as if they weren't bad enough, but then they have excess salt and sugar, additives, all sorts of artificial ingredients added to them. So examples of processed grains, well, you've got your white rice, your white bread, white flour, noodles, pasta, biscuits, baked goods, all that type of thing. These are all processed grains. But also processed meat is a very strong contributor as well to the aging process and to diseases. And some people are unclear as to what processed meat is. So I'll just run through them. Any meat that's been smoked, salted, cured, or preserved with chemicals in any way. And when you think about it, that's a lot of meat product. And for some people, it's the only type of meat they eat. And a lot of those kind of processed meats are typically given to children. They're highly toxic and they're extremely bad for us, and they are very, very aging. So then number 10 is spicy foods. Now there's actually a lot of positive things that can be said for spicy foods, but I just wanted to include this one because of the effects that it can have on your skin, particularly if you're eating too much spicy food. The thing about spicy food, once you get into it, then you tend to start ramping it up and up and up as you get more used to the taste. You want it even spicier and spicier. So if you're overdoing it a bit, just be careful, because it can cause problems with the skin, particularly if you're prone to flushing or rosacea. It can make that a lot worse, and it can break the capillaries in your skin. So you know those little red spider veins, they're not very attractive, and they really can come about from eating too much spicy food, and they're very, very difficult to treat, certainly not with creams or potions. So I just added in spicy foods for that reason. And that takes us to the end, really. That's about it. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful, helpful. And if you've got any questions or comments, as always, just put them in the box. And do please share. And if you think anyone will benefit, hopefully a lot of people. And subscribe and ring the little bell if you'd like notifications of when the next video comes out. My videos pretty much come out every Friday. So until the next time, I'm Nuala Black. This is Foxy at 50. Stay safe, happy, healthy and well. Bye bye.